This video is designed to replace the Module number 8 webinar. You're going to need your Hacker and Somers textbook to complete this video in the most efficacious manner. So if you need to, pause the video and go get your book and come right back. Let's quickly discuss the work covered in Module number 8. You were to learn from, covered in Module number 7. You were to use the paragraph formatting tool in order to create your papers from now on. If you haven't used it, then you should practice it and look back at the webinar, the recorded webinar for Module number 7 to see how that paragraph formatting tool is used. I think I also covered it in Module number 6. Your research step number 5 should be completed. That's your research proposal. That's very important. It's a complete statement on what your research question is and how you're covering it and the sources you're using and why you chose it. You also were asked in Module number 7 in the group discussion about your note cards and how you're going to be forming note cards and organizing your annotated notes so that you can you could write your paper in a more organized way. And I need to remind you that you need to get all of the work in now. When it says the module work, I'm referring to the research steps. They need to be all completed before you complete module number 9. For this week, we're going to review the work that's due this week. The main work for this week is research step number 6, which is your research paper outline, covered in module number 8. Please take a close look at that. We'll discuss it briefly in this video. We're also looking at and considering web page credibility. How do you determine if a web page that you're using in your paper is credible? And we're using that University of Berkeley website there, which comes from their library, which has some criteria for judging the credibility of a website. And I urge you to continue finding and reading your secondary sources. Remember, you cannot read these sources once to own them. You have to read them several times, continue to annotate them, find your objective and subjective annotations, write them out on the printout of your secondary source, and then transfer them over to your note cards. The draft of the first section of your paper will be due on November 13th. We're going to be talking about the fact that your paper is going to be broken up into 2 or 3 sections, and the first section of your paper will be due on November 13th. That first section will run from 4 to 6 body paragraphs with an introduction and conclusion in that section. And this week we're going to be working on outlining the entire paper, and then you're going to be using the first part of that outline to write your first section of the paper due on November 13th. So the assignment for module number 8 by Wednesday evening, your group discussion is answering the question about whether or not a website is credible. You can use these 4 questions there, which is gotten from the University of Berkeley website, from their library website on judging a website. You can use those questions to help you answer the question of whether or not the website you're asked to evaluate is in fact credible. By Saturday evening, you need to complete the Module 8 blog, which is basically research step number 6, which is the research paper outline. We'll talk about that in about 30 seconds. By Sunday evening, I'd like you to take a look at 1 or 2 outlines of others in your group and comment on them. So at the bottom of the blog of 1 or 2 of your peers, I'd like you to answer the following questions about their outline. Does each section question in their outline relate to the main research question? The next thing is, does the outline need more or less section questions? Remember, you don't want more than 3 section questions, at least 2. So you can make that judgment, and then look at the subpoints for each of the section questions and determine whether those subpoints or topic sentences relate to the section question. Do they relate to it clearly? Are they in a good order? Okay, so here's a template of what your research step number 6 should look like. At the top, you should have your main research question, which you've all determined at this point. And then you need to break up that main research question into section questions. So you're going to have first section question, second section question, and maybe a third section question, which I've not represented here. And you basically need to write out that question as a main point. And then under each section question, I'd like you to determine what each of the body paragraphs in that section is going to cover. Remember, each section needs to run from 4 to 6 body paragraphs, so that each section is about 1.5 pages to 2 pages, and that each of the body paragraphs is going to be a common theme that relates to that section question. Now these subpoints here can be in the form of topic sentences. So once you've written your topic sentences, you then have actually started writing the research paper. And so I'd like you to write the topic sentences for each of the section questions. Now this may be a guess about what those topic sentences are going to be. It may even be a guess about what your section questions are going to be, but you need to start and think about how you're going to organize your paper. And then you need to go back and you need to look at each of the body paragraphs and determine whether or not you have enough source material to support each one of those body paragraphs. Of course, I'd like you to look at 1 or 2 of your peers' outlines and to analyze and evaluate 1 or 2 based on those 3 questions. If anyone has any questions about how to do this, please put your questions in the muddiest points, and I'm more than willing to meet with anyone online if you just want to set up a conference with me online. As a reminder that the draft of the first section of your paper, remember this will be about 1.5 pages to 2 pages, will be due on November 13th, and that's part of Module 9. So we're not there yet, we're in Module 8. Right now we're just outlining our research paper, which is a very, very important step and will help you to think through the entire paper. And you may want to pause the video, go get your Sommer and Hacker textbook, and open it up to the APA section in the back of the textbook. And I'm going to ask you a few questions, and then you can pause the video, see if you can figure out the answer, and then you can start the video and I'll give you the answer. So here is a source. It comes from a website. The title of the web page is Frederick Taylor in Scientific Management. This is the date it's retrieved on. There's the URL of the web page. Author's not given. There's the date. So where would you look in your Hacker and Sommer's textbook to find the answer for how you would reference this particular source? So pause the video right now. Okay, hopefully now you've started again, and if you have and you've figured out where in the textbook you're going to look, let's look at the answer. So there is the answer. You would look on page 648 and page 660. On 648 in number 4, it tells you what to do when you don't know the author of a source, and on number 39 it tells you how to reference a web page. Okay, let's take a look at this next one. Take a look at it, and then I'd like you to determine where would you look in your Hacker and Sommer's textbook in order to reference this. Notice this comes from an online archive of the New York Times. We have the author, we have the date that it was published, we have the title of the article, and when it's retrieved. So where would you look? Pause the slideshow right now. Okay, if you've come up with your answer and you started the slideshow again, then let's take a look at where you would look in your Hacker and Sommer's textbook. And you would look on page 657, number 32, and that gives you an example of what to do when you find an article in an archive in an online from a newspaper. Alright, here we have a reference page. It has 3 sources on it, and I'd like you to pause the slideshow, pause the video, and determine where the mistakes are. There are several mistakes, so pause the video. Okay, if you've taken a few moments and looked through it, let's go through the problems here. First off, it should not say works cited, it should say references. The and should be an ampersand and not an and. The period should not be at the end of the URL. Right? Here is the Frederick and Taylor Scientific Management example we had from the previous screen. The title is the beginning, which is right, but there should be no quotation marks, and the S and the M should not be capitalized. This part retrieved on February 10th, 2004, that should not be there. On February 10th, 2004 should not be there. It should just read retrieved from and then the URL. Notice the URL has a hyperlink. You need to get rid of that. You have to get rid of the period at the end. The next one, Thomas, should just be a T, not the whole name. The New York Times should be italicized, and the title should not. The L should be lowercase, D lowercase, I lowercase, so it's sentence case, and you should just include the first part of the URL, and this last part here should not be included. It should just include the basic part of the NewYorkTimes.com. And also, it's not in alphabetical order. This should be first, F, G, H, A, K should be next, and then P. So it should be this one, then this one should be in alphabetical order. Okay, let's take a look at these questions, see if you can determine the answers, and then pause it, and then I will reveal the answers. So first one, what if you have a source with 2 to 7 authors? Where do you look? Well, you're going to look on page 647, number 2. It tells you how to create a bibliography for a source with that many authors. How about if you have more than 7 authors? Pause the slideshow. Okay, if you start it again, then the place you would look is number 2, again on page 647. It's going to answer the question there. Where do you look if you don't know the date of the publication? That I'm going to let you find on your own. What if the author is an organization? It's not a single author or a person, but it's an organization. Where are you going to look in Hacker and Summers to find the answer? Number 3 on page 648. What if your source has 3 to 5 authors? Where are you going to look? You look on number 4 on page 641. What if there are more than 6 authors? How are you going to, oh, here we're talking about citing. How are you going to cite that? If you have more than 6 authors, you're going to look at number 5 on page 641. Okay, if you have more than 6 authors, how do you cite it? How do you cite if you do not have the author's name? Where do you look if you don't have the author's name? Well, you can look on number 6, again on page 641. And how do you cite an article? The first time when it's when the author is the NIMH, National Institute of Mental Health. How do you cite it the first time? You can look on number 7 on page 641 and 2. So the main thing that we're trying to show here is that when you're citing and when you're referencing, you want to use your textbook and know where to look. I'd like to remind you that we have some very good online sources that you can be using. This first one is a guide for writing research papers, and it's based on recommendations by the American Psychological Association on APA, how to write an APA paper. These next are OWLs from Purdue on formatting a bibliography for electronic sources like stuff that's online in databases. So these are also websites that I would recommend you using. Just quickly remember, you need to put your annotated notes onto note cards. This is what it looks if you're doing it on a regular paper note card. I recommend you use a 5 by 7 inch note card. So remember you want to have a bibliography card. That would be one card. You want to number that card and number the source. So you want to take your source, print it out, staple it together, and give it a number. And then for each annotation, you want to have one card. So right up there is the number that relates back to the bibliography card. And then you have your, right in the middle, there is your annotation. You give the annotation a title and a note to yourself about how you're going to be using it. And then you're going to be collecting a whole bunch of note cards for each article. So maybe you'll have 4, 5, 6, 7, maybe even 10 articles. And you gather a number of note cards for each one. Each note card has a number on it that represents that article, so you don't have to write a bibliography for each of the note cards. And then you're going to organize the cards based on the themes. And each of the sections of your paper will have a pile of note cards that relate to that section. And then you'll organize each of those note cards into body paragraphs, and then use the note cards to write your body paragraphs. And so that's the process we're using to write our paper. And so that's it for now. If you have any questions, please contact me by email. And if you need, you can set up a conference with me, and we can speak online. You have a good week.